Earlier this month, U.S. President Donald Trump said he was going to give Canada a 30-day reprieve on his punitive tariffs. And this is also a man who thinks tariffs solve everything. He says tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. And a week later, not 30 days like he promised, but a week later, he imposes a 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum and steel. At the very best, this makes him unreliable, and at the worst, he's unstable and maybe even a liar. But it really shows how little he understands about tariffs and trade. Just look at the three big areas that he's targeted for Canada: oil, aluminum, and cars. We are responsible for 25% of all the oil used in the United States. Not all the imported oil used, 25% of all their oil, domestic and import. He says we don't need their oil. But after 9/11, the Bush White House decided that it would seek a partner in oil that was reliable, stable, democratic, and who weren't going to use the profits to fund terrorism. That's where we came in. We replaced oil from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states and from Venezuela and other places. We are now responsible for 60% of all the imports of oil in the United States and 25% of the total oil. Trump doesn't care. It makes perfect sense to us, it makes perfect sense to the world, but not to Donald Trump. Then look at aluminum. We are responsible in Canada for 60% of the aluminum used in the United States. 60%. They don't have huge aluminum deposits. They need our aluminum for their defense industry, their auto industry, and for everything else in the United States that is made out of aluminum. You can't build modern weapon systems without our aluminum. You can't build modern autos without our aluminum. And Donald Trump says, no. This has all got to be made in America. We can do this. No, you can't. And then you take a look at auto parts. Finished autos from Canada are only about 8 or 9% of the domestic market in the United States, but we are responsible for between 15 and 18% of all the parts in cars made in the United States. Made in the United States. We don't send them as many finished autos as we send them parts. And so if he imposes a tariff on parts, that is going to make automobiles made in the United States by Americans, sold to Americans, much more expensive. And because it can't just instantly swap out Canadian-made parts for American-made parts. There isn't the factory capacity for that in the United States. But here's one last example of how it is that Donald Trump does not understand trade and tariffs. A lot of people think that the collapse of the stock market in 1929 was the cause of the Great Depression. That certainly didn't help. It created runs on banks. It created one set of banks calling in other banks' loans, and it created financial chaos. But the biggest single thing was in 1930, in order to protect the American market, the U.S. Congress passed huge reciprocal tariffs. If you have a tariff on us, we're going to put a tariff on you. And that caused 25 other countries to put tariffs on American goods, which meant that there wasn't as much international trade. Production in the United States went down 25%, investment went down 50%, and unemployment went to 25%. Because there were not the markets anymore for the goods that the Americans made. American farmers were hit by the Dust Bowl, yes, but not everywhere in the United States. It wasn't the whole continent that had a drought. But what did happen all across the United States was that there was a glut of agricultural production because export markets had been cut off. Because they put on tariffs and other countries put on tariffs. And that is exactly what Trump is proposing to do. This is insane economic policy. It is not the most beautiful word in the world. It will not rehome all of the American production that went overseas. And it's certainly going to mess up American exports, American jobs, and the American economy, as well as ours. It is a foolish policy. For Post Media, I'm Lorne Gunter.